What is up, guys, and welcome back. If you've been following the bike build, we have made some progress. I have all the parts painted. I still got to sand and polish them out. It's just been a little bit cold and been dealing with some other stuff with trying to get things on the bike because there is a lot going on with it. But I have the Santoro Fabworks bolt kit, original garage motor risers, all the wiring cleaned up, the toggle switch relocated, and it's starting to look amazing. But I need to get those parts sanded and polished so it can start looking like a bike again, because I still have a few parts to come in. But what are we doing today? We're going to take the rear wheel off, have the tire swapped over to the new wheel, and the reason is it still has plenty of tread left on it. Let me show you. I mean, it has plenty left. I mean, I just put it on last year, right before going to Sturgis. So it might have 5,000 miles on this tire. So there's still plenty of tread. I mean, so I don't want that tire to go to waste. So I am swapping over to the new wheel from Geezer Engineering. Now, the front one being a 19 from Geezer, I had to put a new tire on it because the front is a 16. So there was no way I was putting that tire on that wheel. Just was not happening, guys. But I will show you the rear wheel in just a second once we get this one off. But when I need a new rear tire for the bike again, I'm going to be running a 180 instead of a 160. How is that possible? Because of the rear fender, which is coming in today, but I won't show you that today. But because of it, I can run a 180. Gives me a lot more room to do that. Enough being said, let's get the rear wheel off so we can go get the tire swapped over to the new wheel. Alright, that took me a little bit of time to get that rear tire off because of the rear brake system. As you saw, I had to take pliers, vice grips, whatever it might be, just to get that one bolt off. And the more I do it, the grooves on the outside are rounding down, making it harder to get grip on it. So I was at the point of almost just having to cut that bolt. Now, the reason I had to clearance it is I did put a new swing arm on the bike before going to Sturgis, if you saw that. But I will give you a whole detailed video on the swing arm and my thoughts and opinions about it. I love the look. I love the way it performed. But that's going to be a whole separate video on that. But the swing arm is meant for FXRs and touring models. I mean, look at it. It needs some cleaning up. Don't mind that. But it has a bracket right here so you can adapt different brake systems. But it was not meant for Harley ABS brakes. So that bottom bolt was hitting the swing arm, making it where I couldn't align the wheel. So I had to clearance it. I didn't really have time to go get a whole nother brake system. And while I'm doing this, I was like, that's got to be swapped out for that exact reason of getting it off. Now, the bracket is going to go back on. The brakes I will be doing later. So you will basically know what brake system I'm going with. There's only two styles that would work with it, older or one that goes below it. And you'll know by the bracket. But the rear wheel is off. So now let me show you the new one going on from Geezer Engineering, because the box is over there for the rear tire. Let me sit you guys down. before I take the wheels and have the tire swapped over, I want to weigh the old wheel with the tire, and then when we get back, weigh the new wheel with the tire and see if there's a weight difference. I'm hoping I'm losing a little bit of weight, but there is a big difference between the two wheels. Let me show you. And it's right here. Because it's made for a 2009 and up, the pulley is completely different. So my old pulley will not work. So what am I doing? I'm going chain drive. That is right. So I do have a little bit more work. I got to take the inner, outer primary off to swap everything over to chain. All right. $51.4. Alright guys, back in the shop, got the tire mounted on the new wheel and it looks amazing. I think a 180 is going to look even better and have more tread back there. But because that one still has plenty of tread, I wanted to use it right now. Now, I did say I was going to weigh it when I got back. Slight issue. Not all the parts are in. Now, you did see me put the wheel bearings in and he sends one wheel bearing. So that way, if you have ABS or non-ABS, you will have to get that bearing. But he does send one, so you only have to get one more to go with it. So I did go ahead and install them. Now, non-ABS is cheaper, so if you're going to eliminate your ABS, then the bearings are cheaper than ABS bearings. Just some info there. But the sprocket did not come in. I checked my tracking and it was showing that it was going to be delivered today, but then when I went down to details, it looks like it's lost. So I'm having to reach out to USPS, Geyser Engineering, try to get another one, and that might take a little bit of time. In the meantime though, I'm not gonna be waiting around for that one part to come in. I still have a lot to be done to the bike. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is pull the outer and inner primary. I do have all those parts coming in as well as for gaskets, the chain, but I can't put it back together or finish up the rear end until the sprockets come in. So there is that dilemma, but let's get the inner primary off. Well guys, we're finally back and everything is finally in for the rear wheel. Got the rotor, got the sprockets for the chain drive because I had to get all that just for the rear wheel to even put it on and weigh it. So that way I could actually show you the difference with everything on the rear wheel because it will make a difference in weight. So I wanted to show that. Now I have to look back at some point and I'll just put it on the screen, the weight difference. But we are going to weigh the rear wheel with everything so I can show you the weight of that. Everything is Geyser Engineering for this rear wheel, the sprockets, the rotor, and it looks amazing with everything on it. So let me show you all that. There is the sprocket. Well, the rear sprocket. I still got to put on the front one and we'll get to that in a minute, but the sprocket does not come with a cush drive. It comes with everything else. So you will need to get your cush drive. Now I went with Ally Art. I've been running their stuff for a long time now. I love it. It holds up real well. It is a little bit more expensive, but that's what I went with. You can just go with the rubber one. It is a little bit cheaper, but I like my stuff to hold up and not have to replace it as often. So that is one reason I went with Ally Art. But this is just a really, really nice wheel and setup. I mean, I might be gaining a little bit more weight with the sprocket and this rear wheel than my other one. I do know with the front wheel I did lose some weight there. So we're going to weigh everything. I got to put the sprocket on and then weigh it. There we go. Okay. I actually got to press it on. All right, guys. Let's weigh this thing. Hope if I turn this thing on. Come on. Is it on? There we go. But I'll put the weight down here, the difference between the old wheel and the new one. But now we can actually get this on the bike. If you saw my last video, I put a brand new swing arm on the bike. It's a 2009 swing arm. I'm excited that that's done. It was a little bit of a headache making sure everything was aligned. But with it being a wider swing arm, I had to pick up a wider axle. And I made sure it came with everything. It's not new. I picked it up off eBay. And once I get this entire build done, I'll go through everything and list out what all you will need for a lot of this project, especially on the rear end of this bike. Let's get this thing on. It's going to be basically exactly the same way as you would do any other wheel, but you do need a 2009 and up axle, plus the spacer for 2009 and up is a little bit thicker, and I'm glad I got an axle with everything, made it so much simpler. So let's get this up under here. Not too bad. Still going to be an unknown territory. Alright. Always getting the space. Once I can get one side going. I made sure to go ahead and lube this axle, that way it'll slide a whole lot easier, or somewhat. Well guys, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I did have to pull the axle all the way back out because the spacer it came with was way too thick. At that point, I did not know if I was going to have to cut a spacer. Luckily, I did not. I was able to use my original spacer and it worked perfectly. So with the original spacer on this side and the ABS on this side, it lines up perfectly because the tire was basically against the rear fender with the other spacer. Now when I put a 180 tire on here, it's going to be a lot closer to this rear fender. It's going to be tight. But I know at this point everything is lined up because I went ahead and checked the sprockets two ways. I did it with a straight edge ruler that was long enough, and I double checked it with a laser. Now this ain't the exact laser I would use. I would use something a little bit smaller, but it does work, and I was able to double check it with the ruler and this laser, and it's lined up perfectly. So you don't have to make any spacers. So I'm very, very glad with that because if I did, I was going to have to take it to a machine shop because I don't have a lathe and that would need to have been cut perfectly. So the next thing, before I do the alignment from the front and rear wheel, I need to get the chain on there, get this all tight so that way everything is moving and doesn't shift. Once I do that, then I can start putting the inner primary back on. Now to remove the front pulley and put the sprocket on, you are going to need some specialty tools to do that. You're going to need a special socket and something to hold the pulley and the sprocket to put it back on because this bolt is a pain in the butt to get off. You're probably going to heat it off. I've even seen people not get it off that way and just cut it. Luckily, I didn't have to do that, but I got to put some Loctite on it and put an impact to tighten that back up. So that's going to be the next step before I even put the chain, because if I put the chain on and don't do that, then it's just a waste of time. Now, you don't have to remove your race to remove the pulley. You can just remove the bolt. I went ahead and removed the race because I didn't know the mileage on it. It was showing some signs of wear, but while I was in here, I was like, hey, let's just replace everything while I'm in this area. So I replaced all the seals. Now, the shifter shaft seal did need to get replaced anyway. There were some oil spots, and you could tell where there was some buildup. So that one definitely needed to be replaced. The rest of them did look fine, but I did not want it to last like maybe 10,000 miles, 15,000 miles. I'd rather it last a lot longer. So it was just a good practice to go ahead and replace it. I mean, I'm already in this area anyway, so it just made sense to me. So let's get this on so we can get more of the bike put back together. Well, I found one little issue already with putting the chain on. Let me show you real quick. It's this box right here on the bottom side. So when I go to try to tighten it up and feel the tightness to get the right adjustment on this chain, it's actually hitting, if I can show you guys, it's probably a little dark in there, but it's hitting on the back side. So I double checked, there's no wires down here. I could go grinding on the back, or I could just cut this bottom section out, and I'm thinking that's what I'm gonna do because it's held in place at the top bolts anyway. So that's a little bit of modification because all it's gonna do is just wear it down on the chain anyway, but I'd rather just kind of remove it so that way I can get the proper tension instead of having to fight that. Well, that wasn't too bad being the first time putting a chain on it. Well, that wasn't too bad putting a chain on the bike for the first time, but I should have got a better tool because I had to grind down the old rivets to press them out. And with a better tool, it'd probably been a little bit easier all the way around, but not too bad. So I do have the axle locked. The chain is adjusted properly. Everything is good. Now I still have to clean it, lube it, all that, but I can do that a little bit later before actually riding it. I'm just getting it done for right now, but later I'll probably end up replacing the axle with something better. I'm not sure yet. I wanted to do an axle lock that went around the bolt into the shot, but it was not matching up like it should. I don't know why. Probably a bad axle lock. Have to look into that. I don't want my chain coming loose and wearing funky, so I want to keep my axle in place. If you know a solution, guys, let me know. I probably go with the Zippers axle kit and fix all that all at one time. But as you see, I do have my inner primary on. I am checking something because I got to take it back off and put the shifter on. I haven't put that on yet because I am checking for clearance. So let's go on the other side and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And it's a standoff right up in here, guys. I want to make sure I have enough clearance on there. When I rotate the wheel forward, I see no problems. It's not touching, it's close. But if I rotate it backwards, it does touch a little bit. So when I take it off in just a minute, I'm probably gonna take a file to it just to give me a little bit more clearance on that standoff. Now my guy over at Ready Fabs does some custom work on inner primaries. Basically what he'll do is cut it and weld it so that way you have no problems. And I probably wouldn't have much of a problem unless I went with 14 or 15 inch shocks. So let's get the inner primary back off, guys. Well, we finally got the new wheel on the bike and the chain conversion kit. Now, his chain conversion kit does not come with a chain and it doesn't come with a cush drive. So if you're interested in doing that, that's the two parts you will have to do for the chain conversion. But that wheel looks amazing. It's starting to look like a bike. But also, I got the inner and outer primary put together. The one thing I didn't show you guys was I did change out the clutch basket. I went with a Trask for several reasons. That clutch basket had 150,000 miles on it. It had some notches. And I was thinking about just filing them down and showing you guys how to do that. But how deep those notches are, and if I can find my clutch hub, I'll show you guys. Because when I started filing that down, I just thought it was too deep to be safe. So it was better for me to just change it out. So if you can kind of, well, you might be able to see, you can kind of see the red up in there. It's a lot thicker. I should have shown you guys a little bit more of that. But next time I take the primary apart, I'll show you the Trask clutch basket. There's a lot of videos out there on it, but it's supposed to hold up to 300 pounds. I'd rather change out the clutch basket than have a problem of the stock one breaking, especially how much material I was going to have to file off. Because with those notches, the clutch isn't going to engage and disengage properly and it can catch. So that can cause the shifting problems. There was just so many things why I changed out the clutch basket. It's better to be safe than sorry. If that broke, I could be looking at a ton of damage inside that primary and not just replacing the clutch basket at that point, because it could break the entire primary, do damage to the flywheel. There's no telling. If you think it's time to change out your clutch basket, just do so. And if you're going to do some major builds, that is a weak point. So at this point, my entire inner primary components are solid proof. I'm running the Man of War. If you want to see that video, it's the very first video I ever did and where I kind of started my channel. So that was one of the major upgrades I did a while back. But I also upgraded my chain tensioner to a Vulcan work because I'm running the 32 compensator, which they don't even sell those anymore. So I'd be devastated if something happened to that compensator because I like the 32 tooth. The only other thing I might do to the inner primary later is replace the inner hub to something a little bit stronger. But I'm not really worried about that as much as the rest of the components, and it is pretty much solid proof. So the other thing with doing the chain conversion, I did change my gearing. As I just said, I am running the 32 comp inside my primary. So with the chain conversion, it did change my gearing from stock. So I did the math on it, and a stock bagger is somewhere right about a 2.7 overall gear ratio. With this entire setup, it's going to be a low 3, like a 3.1, 3.0. So that's going to change how this thing rides. So I'm gaining acceleration, losing a little bit of top end. So I definitely have to get used to riding this thing again and how it takes off the line. But what I'm in the process of doing is checking the alignment. That's where you see the string right now. So I'm doing the string test. Now, because it's on button jag, I'm having to really take my time and make sure the string is straight. So I'm taking it from the front wheel to the rear, and everything does seem like everything is aligned, so I don't have to adjust the bottom stabilizer link. The best way to do this is if I had a actual jack stand or a trailer to where I could put this up on and not have any kind of interference up under the bike to make sure. But that's why I'm saying I have to take my time making sure the string is straight on both sides. Everything seems correct, so I don't have to make that adjustment. I'm very, very happy about that. So then I can just button up everything, because that is a very crucial point. Like my other video, making sure your swing arm is aligned on both sides as well, which you do that adjustment on the top stabilizer link, and that was out of adjustment. But since everything checks out, the only thing left to do is put the oil in the primary, put the derby cover on, and the rear end is complete. So stay tuned for the rest of the build, because there is still some things to come that I haven't told you guys about. So I hope you guys have a good one. Stay tuned for the next video, and I'll see you guys next time.